We continue now at the top of Daf Samach Aleph and Beis in Mesechet Kesubos. This is Kesubos Daf 61b. The Gemara is continuing a story where Rav Ashi and Mar Zutra, they're standing, and the butler of King Izgor passes by with some food. And so Rav Ashi sees that Mar Zutra, the Chavar Ape, that his face became white. He desired the food. So Shokal Betzbase, he took some food with his finger. Anachle Bepume, he put it in his mouth. Amar Le, so the butler said to him, Afsarta L'Sudasa de Malka, you just ruined the food of the king. Amru Le, and now the officers, they said to Rav Ashi, Amai David Hachi. So he said, why'd you do this? Amar Lahu, he said to them, Man David Hachi Pasal Lamachal de Malka. No, it's the one who made this food that really ruined the food of the king. There's something wrong with this food. Amru Le, they said to him, Amai, why? What's wrong with the food? Amar Lahu, he said to them, Davar Acher Chazoi Be. I saw something else in the food. I saw something bad in the food. Badku v'lo ashkachu. They checked the food. They didn't find anything wrong with it. And so the Gemara continues. Shokal etzbasei anachale. He took his finger and he put it on the food. Amar Lahu, and he said to them, Hacha, it's over here. Hacha mi badkisu. Did you check over here? Badku ashkachu. And they checked over there, and indeed they found that there was something wrong with the food at that area. Amar Le Rabbanan, the Rabbanan said to him, to Rav Ashi, my time was samachta, so why are you relying on a miracle? Amar Lahu, he said to them, Chazoi ruach tzaras to kaparchi lave. I actually saw a spirit of tzaras that was floating over the food, hovering over the food, and that's why I knew that this would be the case. The Gemara continues at the Tudat, Sahuro Mad, Amar Lo Lahitasa, there was a Roman who said to a certain woman, Minsavasli, marry me. Amar Le Lo, she said to him, no. Azalaisi Rimone, so he went and he brought some pomegranates, Pali Vachli, he peeled them and he ate them, Kama in front of her. Kalmaya de Sari La Belose Vela Havala, and all of the saliva that she had, she was salivating at the food, it was causing her anguish, and she swallowed it, and he wouldn't give her. Ad Zagla until she became ill. Lasofa Amar, then at the end he said to her, Imasina Lach, if I heal you, Minsavasli, will you marry me? Amrle in. So she said to him, yes. Azalasi Rimoni Pali Vachla Kama. Again he brought pomegranates, peeled it and ate it in front of her. Amar, but he said to her this time, Kalmaya Tsari Lach, any saliva that's causing you anguish, Tov Shadoi, you have to spit it out. Adanafka Minoki Hutsa Yarkovitzias. Then what happened was something like a green leaf came out of her and she was healed. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. The Mishnah said, V'yosa B'tzemer, one of the things the wife does for her husband is she makes threads from the wool. B'tzemer in B'pishtim lo. The Gemara says it seems to be from wool, but not from flax. Masnis and money, who's the author of our Mishnah? Reb Yehudi, it's Reb Yehuda. The Tanya, as we learned in a Braisa, Eino kofel lamod lifnei aviv. He can't force her to stand and serve in front of his father. V'lo lamod lifnei beno. He can't force her to stand and serve in front of his son. V'lo litein teven lifnei behemto. He can't force her to put straw in front of his animal. Avol kofel litein teven lifnei bekaro. But he could force her to put straw in front of his cattle. Reb Yehuda says, Afe no kofel asos bepishton. He's also not allowed to force her to do work with flax. Mimnei shepishton masriach esapeh, because pishton causes a foul odor in the mouth. Umesharvid es asvasayim, and it stiffens the lips. V'hani mili bekisna roma. That's specifically true by the Roman flax. Rashi over here says behemto. The question here is, what's the difference between behemto and bekaro? Behemto sus v'chamor shein mezuyonin v'tzalim l'revia. She doesn't have to serve in front of a horse or a donkey because they want to have relations. Avol bakar eno lod achar revia sisha, but bakar, cattle, referring to cows and similar, they don't chase after women. Vein yitzro nikar kol kach. You can't recognize their yetzer hara. Lafikach ein isha nistis lo. Therefore, again, it's not a problem there to have his wife serve them. It's not going to pose that problem. Vani shamati bekaro nikevos behemto zachar. Rashi says, I heard the difference is bekaro refers to females, that she has to do, but behemto refers to males, that she does not have to do. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. The Mishnah said, Rabbi Eliezer Omer afilu hichnisa lo mea shvachos. Even if she brings in 100 maidservants, she still has to do some work in front of him because the idleness will lead to problems. The Gemara says, Amar of Malkio, Amar of Ada Barava. Rav Malkio says that Rav Ada Barava says halacha Rabbi Eliezer. The halacha is like Rabbi Eliezer. Amar Rabbi Chanina Brei Ravika. Rabbi Chanina Brei Ravika says shafud, shvachos, v'gumos. The case of shvud, shvachos, and gumos, Rav Malkio. That was said by Rav Malkio. Beloris, Efer Makla, Ugvina. In the cases of Beloris, Efer Makla, and Gvina, Rav Malkio. That was not Rav Malkio, but rather Rav Malkio. Rav Papa says Masnisin Masnisa Rav Malkio. When it was referring to issues in the Mishnah or the Braisa, that's Rav Malkio. Shmaitza, but if it was sugyas of halacha of Amoraim, Rav Malkio, that's Rav Malkio. V'simonach, and the way to remember that is Masnisa Malkasa. The Braisa is Malkasa, meaning that's Rav Malkio. And the Gemara says, My Beinai, what's the difference between the different versions of who said what? Iga Beinai Mayu Shvachos. There's an argument over here who's the one that said the halacha by Shvachos. And Rashi over here says Shvod Shvachos v'gumo simone halacha, saying these are just simonim of various halachas that were stated. Shvod b'Meseches Beitza, you can find the case of Shvod in Meseches Beitza. Shvachos kan, the case of Shvachos, that's our case right over here in terms of bringing in 100 Shvachos. Gumos b'Meseches Nida, the case of Gumos can be found in Meseches Nida. Beloris b'Meseches Avodah Zarah, the case of Beloris you can find in Avodah Zarah. Efer Makla b'Meseches Makos, you can find the case of Efer Makla in Meseches Makos. And Gavina b'Meseches Avodah Zarah, the case of the cheese is in Meseches Avodah Zarah. Tlas minayu masnisa. Now 3 of them are Mishnah Shvachos uvloris ugvina. Utlas minayu shmaitza, and 3 of them are statements of Amoraim, meaning the first 3 are either Mishnayos or Braisos. The second set of 3 are statements of Amoraim. Uparshinu Rav Malkiyo Rav Malkiya, and it was Rav Malkiyo and Rav Malkiya that explained these various cases. And Rashi continues, Rav Papa Simon de Rav Malkiyo Polig. Rav Papa, he's arguing on the simon that Rav Chanina Brei de Ravika gave in terms of Rav Malkiyo. To Kamar Shvachos Rav Malkiyo lesser. Rav Papa is saying that the case of Shvachos that was not Rav Malkiyo. The Chol Masnisa no Masnisa, because if it's a Mishnah or Brisa, the Hacha Rav Malkiyo. Any Mishnah or Brisa is Rav Malkiyo. Parshinu Rav Malkiyo is the one that explained them. Aval Shmaitz, but when it comes to the sugyas of Amoraim, the Yamar Rav Malkiyo Modinalach, those sugyas that you said were Rav Malkiyo, that Rav Papa says he admits. B'simonech shlo tachlef begir. So the way to remember this is Masnisa Malkusa. The Brisa is a Melech. Lagabe Shmaita having Masnisa Malkusa. What it means to say is, if you're comparing a statement of Amoraim to a Brisa, the Brisa is like a king. To Haminam Mosvinon to Yufta Lishmaita, because we use Brisas and we ask questions on statements of Amoraim. B'simonech Malkiyo Loshan Nekeva. The idea of Malkiyo is a Loshan Nekeva. Aval Malkiyo Loshan Zachar. Malkiyo is a Loshan Zachar. That's the idea of Masnisa Malkusa. Again, Rav Malkiya is the one who said the Masnisa. And the Gemara continues that the 2 dots, Rav Shimon Gamliel Omer V'chul. Rav Shimon Gamliel says that if she's doing nothing, if the woman is idle, so then it leads to idiocy, to shiamum. And the Gemara says, Hainu Tanakama, isn't that the same as the Tanakama? Rabbi Eliezer said it leads to zima, it leads to licentiousness. What's the difference between the 2 opinions? And the Gemara answers, Ika Beinayu, there is a difference between them as follows: the metalla beguraisa kitnaisa v'nardashir. And Rashi over here explains, Hainu Tanakama, Rabbi Eliezer, meaning it's again Rav Shimon Gamliel is the same as Rabbi Eliezer. Mali l'dei shiamum, mali l'dei zima. What's the difference between the idleness bringing one to idiocy or bringing one to licentiousness? And the Gemara answers, the metalla beguraisa kitnaisa v'nardashir. What that means is Mesechet beklavim dakim. Let's say she's not totally idle, she's playing with small dogs. Uschok shekorn ishkakish. That refers to these games. It might be a game like chess. So if she's occupying herself with these kind of things, so lidei zima ika, she still might come to zima, she still might come to licentious behavior. Lidei shiamum leka, but it's not going to bring her to idiocy. The ein shiamum ela biyoshev etov v'atalagamri. You're only going to be brought to idiocy if you're doing nothing. If she's occupying herself in some way, that would avoid the problem of shiamum. And the Gemara continues with the Mishnah, Hamadir isishto mitashmesh hamito. Let's say somebody takes a vow and he says it's going to be prohibited for him to have relations with his wife. Beis Shammai omrim shtei shabbos. Beis Shammai say he can do it for 2 weeks, but after 2 weeks already he has to divorce her and give her the ksuba. Beis Hillel omrim shabbos achas. Beis Hillel say just 1 Shabbos, and again after that he has to divorce her and give her the ksuba. Hatalmidim yotzim l'talmud Torah shelo b'reshus. The Talmidim, they're allowed to go out in order to learn Torah even without getting permission from their wives, even though they will not be having relations with their wives. Shloshim Yom, and that can be for 30 days. Hapoalim Shabbos Achas, and when it comes to workers, that can be for 1 week. Ha'ono ha'amura b'Torah, what is the standard obligation of ona, of having relations with one's wife in the Torah? It varies based on the person's occupation. Hatayolin b'chol yom, people of leisure, people who don't really have to work, so every day is the obligation. Hapoalim, if it's workers, shtayim b'Shabbos, that's twice during the week. Hachamorim, the donkey drivers, achas b'Shabbos, the obligation is once a week. Hagamolim achas l'shloshim yom, the camel drivers, it's once every 30 days. Hasaponim achas l'shisha chadashim, and those people who are sailors, once every 6 months. Divrei Rabbi Eliezer. This is the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer. And Rashi over here explains, Hamadir is ishto, he makes a vow by his wife not to have relations. Rashi says, Kegon damar yeyoser hanos tashmishcha Allah. He has to specifically say that the pleasure of having relations to you will be forbidden to me. He's putting the isser upon himself. Aval hanos tashmisha yolecha, but if he says the pleasure of having relations with me is going to be prohibited to you, lo mitzvah, that does not create an isser, because he's actually obligated to her. It says he's not allowed to withhold the act of relations from her, so therefore he's not allowed to say that. That's what we say in Mesechus Nedarim. And Rashi continues, Beis Shammai omrim shtei shabbosos. Beis Shammai says that lasts for 2 weeks. Im heidira beis shabbosos tamtin v'im yoser yotzi v'den ksuba, for 2 weeks. So that vow is allowed to go for 2 weeks, but more than that already already, he has to divorce her and give her the ksuba. And the Gemara says, "My time of the Beis Shammai. What's the reason of Beis Shammai that he's allowed to withhold for 2 weeks? Gamri mioledis nekeva. They learn it out from a woman who gives birth to a girl. In that case, she's tamei for 2 weeks. Beis Hillel gamri mioledis zachar. And Beis Hillel, they learn from a woman who gives birth to a male. In that case, she is impure for 1 week." And the Gemara says, "Beis Hillel nami nigmru mioledis nekeva." Beis Hillel also, why don't they learn it out from somebody who gives birth to a girl? And the Gemara says, "You're right. Mioledis gamri lo hachinam." If they were really learning it out from a case of childbirth, they would have learned it out from that case. Ella Beis Hillel mi nida gamri lo. Actually, Beis Hillel learned it out from a nida, just like a nida is tamei for a week. So they learn out that the time period is a week. And the Gemara says, "B'ma'ika miflagi." So what are they arguing about? Mar savar midi d'shchiach mimidi d'shchiach. One says you have to learn out something common from something common. The case of making a vow is common, and the case of nida is common. You learn one out from the other. Umar savar, and the other one holds no midi duhu garim la mimidi du garim la. You have to learn out something that he caused from something else that he caused. He doesn't cause her to become a nida, but he does cause her to give birth to a child. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rav. Rav says, Machlokas b'mefarish. This Machlokas Beis Shammai Beis Hillel is when the person makes this neder and he specifies the amount of time. So it's a Machlokas 1 week or 2 weeks. Aval b'stam. But let's say the person just makes a neder stam with no time limit. So Divrei Akal, everybody agrees, Yotzi la'alter v'yiten ksuba. He has to divorce her immediately and he has to give the ksuba. It's only if he specifies a certain amount of time. So again, Beis Shammai say it can be up to 2 weeks and Beis Hillel say up to 1 week. And the Gemara continues with Shmuel Amar, but Shmuel says he disagrees with Rav, and he says, Afilu b'stam nami, even if a person just makes the vow stam with no time limit, yamtin, still he should wait for the 1 week or the 2 weeks, shamayimtza pesach l'nidra, because maybe he'll be able to find some opening, some way out of the neder within that time period, and then he can remain married. And the Gemara continues, Hapligi ba chadazimna, this machlokas Rav and Shmuel, they've already argued about this once. T'tanan, because we learned in the Mishnah, Hamadir es ishto melehonoslo, let's say a person makes a neder that his wife cannot derive any benefit from him. At shloshim yom yamid parnas, for 30 days he has to set somebody up who's going to be able to support her. Yoser mikan, but if it goes more than 30 days, yotzi viten ksuba, he has to divorce her and he has to give her the ksuba. V'yomar Rav, and Rav said, Lo shanu el b'mefarish, this whole halach is only true when he explains, when he gives the time limit clearly. Aval b'stam, but if he gives no time limit, yotzi la'alter v'yiten ksuba, he has to divorce her immediately and give the ksuba. This is the same thing that Rav said in our Mishnah. Ushmuel Amar, and Shmuel says, Afilu b'stam nami, even in a case where he says it's stam, with no time limit, yamtin, even in that case, he needs to delay, shamayimtza pesach l'nidru, he should wait, because maybe he'll find a way out of the neder. So the question is, why do Rav and Shmuel have to have the same machlokas twice? And the Gemara answers, Sricha, we need both cases. The yitmar baha kama Rav, because if you only had that case, only over there Rav would say it. Mishum de lo efshe b'parnis, meaning to say in our Mishnah, there is no possibility of setting up somebody to support her. Aval bahi de efshe b'parnis, but if you have a situation where it's possible to set up somebody to support her, so maybe Rav would admit to Shmuel that even in that situation you would be able to wait. V'yitmar bahi, and the other way around also, if you only had this case, ba'ach kamar Shmuel, I would say only over here Shmuel said that you can wait, because again it's possible with a parnis. Aval b'ha'im amodele l'Rav, but maybe in our Mishnah he would admit to Rav, and so therefore the Gemara says Sricha, we need both cases. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. The Mishnah said hatalmidim yotzin l'talmud v'chulu. It said the students can go to learn Torah without permission for 30 days. And so the Gemara asks Birshus Kama, let's say they get permission from their wives, how long? The Gemara says, what do you mean? Kama Deboy, as long as they want. If they have permission, if everybody agrees, what's the difference? And we'll continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf 61b Amud Aleph.